This is mine. This is you. Okay. Yeah. Okay, go ahead. Intro. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your ears to the song. Open your ears to the song. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane, where our mission is to join together to create a nourishing, liberal religious home and to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in our wider world. Or, as we say in short, to create community, find meaning, and work for justice. Welcome to one and all. I want to begin, as usual, by welcoming all that you bring with you. All of your uniqueness, your unique beliefs, your background, your lifestyle, your experiences, your masks. I like the kitty cat mask in the back there. Welcome to one and all. We're glad to have you. This includes those in the room with us. Those of you who might be joining us more recently for the first time, you're equally as welcome this morning, as are those of you who are streaming with us. It's always wonderful to know that you are participating with us as well. So welcome to one and all. I do not have any announcements to make this morning, so we're going to give you a couple of extra minutes to greet one another. As always, I hope you'll say hi to those you know and love and look forward to seeing. I hope you'll make some new friends today as well. And if you are visiting or here for the first time, please don't be shy. So far, nobody has gotten bitten by this bunch. Except for me, maybe, a couple of times. But please. Yeah, you can get it offline. I'll put it up by Tuesday. I have to proof it. It'll be up, yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, and please do stay around after our service for our social hour, where you'll have an opportunity to hang out and visit with one another a bit more. We're going to move forward now by lighting our chalice, the symbol of our faith, the symbol of our unity and our solidarity, of our openness and our inclusion, of our community and our individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world and a beacon of hope to those in need, and may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost, and cast a healthy shadow of doubt wherever it's been found.
Our opening reflection is this poem by Barbara Crooker, Praise Song. Praise the light of late November, the thin sunlight that goes deep in the bones. Praise the crows chattering in the oak trees. Though they are clothed in night, they do not despair. Praise what little there's left, the small boats of milkweed pods, husks, hulls, shells, the architecture of trees. Praise the meadow of dried weeds, yarrow, goldenrod, chicory, the remains of summer. Praise the blue sky that hasn't cracked yet. Praise the sun slipping down behind the beech nuts. Praise the quilt of leaves that covers the grass. Scarlet oak, sweet gum, sugar maple. Though darkness gathers, praise our crazy fallen world. It's all we have, and it's never enough.
Please rise for our second hymn of the morning. It's number 128, For All That Is Our Life. And I do think this one is particularly applicable to our overall circumstances now.
And make our own days glad.
We're now going to kindle our candles of care for those who are most on our hearts and minds this morning. And I want to begin with a candle for church member Nancy Hand, whose brother recently passed away, and also for church member and one of our board members, Candace Schmidt, whose brother also passed away earlier this month. And for church member Tom Schmidt, who went into hospice care this week. So please keep him in your thoughts. And also for Marion Hennings, also a dear member who is under hospice care at this time. Let's take a moment of silence on behalf of others that you might be thinking of this morning, and you're welcome to name them aloud at this time if you'd like. Those named aloud and those embraced in our silence, and all those who are suffering in our world at this hour, we hold in our community with compassion. And we now gratefully give and receive this morning's offering, which helps sustain this community and our mission to the larger world. It is now time for our story for all ages. If anybody would like to come forward and sit up front, you're welcome to. Any of the younger folks? Yeah, come on up. There we go. Just so you know you're not alone. There. Very good. Here they come. All right. I'm glad Max is coming because Max, one of your favorite guests, is here. I brought somebody Max enjoys having around. Let's see who it is. Let's see who our guest is today. Oh my goodness, look who it is. It's our old friend, Professor Marty Pants. That's Pants with a Z. Yes, Pants with a Z, one of the world's foremost discoverologists. You know what a discoverologist is? It means that he is a bipedal anthropomorph who utilizes protoplasmic endowments and ocular faculties to ascertain phenomenon. Which means he discovers things. Okay? And what have you discovered lately, Professor Pants with a Z? Oh, I'm afraid I've discovered something that's just terrible. The worst thing I've ever discovered. Oh my gosh, well, what is it? I call it global warming. Global warming. You mean global warming? I discovered it, I'll call it what I want. Okay, well, global warming is not a bad name, but you know, people have actually known about it for over 100 years, and it's been in the news a lot lately. There's even an international climate change conference going on right now to try to address the problem. Well, I'm surprised they haven't invited me. After all, I discovered it. Well, just so you know, global warming, that's global warning. Yes, global warning, as you call it, has a lot of other people concerned too, including lots of world leaders, scientists, corporations, and ordinary people. Are you guys concerned about global warming? A few? Yeah? Max, you're not. You've been thinking about it? Okay. You haven't been thinking about it. Well, you've been thinking about it? Yeah or not? Yeah? You have been? Some of you have? Some of you haven't? Well, I'm sorry to terrify you, Max, but you'll be thinking about it by the end of this, so. Well, anyway, people have been working to make things a lot better, Professor Pants with a Z. Well, I'm working to make things better myself. Oh, are you? Well, how so? That's really good news. We need a lot of geniuses like you to help repair some of the damage we've done. So what have you come up with, Professor Pants with a Z? I've recently discovered that global warming is being caused by the use of oil and coal energy. Yeah? So I've invented a way to convert, get this, sunlight into energy. You mean solar energy. Say, I like the sound of that solar energy. I think I'll use it. Okay. Well, Professor, people have been using solar energy for many years, so much so that it's actually become the cheapest form of energy in human history. Yes. Aren't you glad I discovered it? Well, what else have you been up to? Well, I've also discovered that raising tall fan-like structures on hillsides, in fields, and even on the oceans, we can harness the energy of wind. I call these structures wind towers. Okay, wind towers. Well, I think you're describing wind farms and wind turbines and that have already been spreading to places all over the world. Oh, it does my heart good to hear you say that, especially since I discovered it. Well, okay, anything else that you've discovered? Yes, we can also harness the energy of ocean waves and rivers. I call it aqua electricity. Okay, well, there's something similar called hydroelectric energy, which is something that we use a lot of right here in our own community. We're fortunate that we can. And just think, I discovered it. Of course you did. I'm glad you did, because the more of us who discover the problem of global warming, that's global warning, yes, global warning, the more of us there are to discover ways to stop it and to help heal our planet by using the kinds of green energy technologies that you have recently discovered, Dr. Pants with a Z. Well, you can thank me later. Right now, it's time for us to get to work to make our planet healthier than ever. Oh, speaking of gratitude, have I ever told you I discovered it? Thank you, Dr. Pants. And we will now sing our children out.
As we move into our time of meditation, please find a relaxed, receptive posture. Close your eyes if you wish, and take a couple of deep breaths. We begin with this famous poem by Emily Dickinson, the first stanza anyway. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all.
With the threat of climate change upon us, it can be hard to be hopeful about the future. But as my friend Hans Rosling, the late global health advocate and educator, wrote in his amazing book, Factfulness, when we have a fact-based worldview, we can see that the world is not as bad as it seems, and we can see what we have to do to keep making it better. When we have a fact-based view of climate change, we can see that we have some of the things we need to avoid a climate disaster, but not all of them. When we see what stands in the way of deploying the solutions we have and developing the breakthroughs we need. And we can see all the work we must do to overcome those hurdles. I'm an optimist because I know what technology can accomplish and because I know what people can accomplish. I'm profoundly inspired by all the passion I see, especially among young people, for solving this problem. If we keep our eye on the goal, the big goal, getting to zero emissions, and we make serious plans to achieve that goal, we can avoid a disaster. We can keep the climate bearable for everyone, help hundreds of millions of poor people make the most of their lives, and preserve the planet for generations to come. Bill Gates.
You know, our Mother Earth is damaged. So many signs from the sky to the ocean floor. This crime is abetted by the greed of a few and carried on the back of the world. Wake up, people, we're under attack. Phase out carbon and don't look back. We're sisters and brothers losing our home. We can save it, but can't do it alone. Caretakers are we of the earth and sky and sea. Living in a wounded world. Behold the remedy. The people united will never be divided. Gotta pool our numbers and rule it. 7 billion souls on ground that is warming. Turn back the dial and cool the dough, but we have the numbers. Get to net zero today. They may have the dough, but we have the numbers. Let's get to net zero. Net zero emissions. Get to net zero today. You know, Pete Seeger was messing with Woody Guthrie's song, This Land Is Your Land. We all know that tune. And I was messing with Pete Seeger's version, and I came up with this following verse, which I hope you'll sing with me when you hear it. Nobody living will ever stop us when we join in a mighty chorus. Nobody living can make us turn back, 'cause this world was made for you and me.
Nobody
Now
living.
you sing it.
Nobody living will ever stop us. Will ever stop us when we belong to. We belong to a mighty chorus. A mighty chorus. Nobody living. Nobody living can make us turn back. Can make us turn back. This world was made for you and me. Okay, come on, Pam, and all your rest of you. Nobody living will ever stop us when we belong to a mighty chorus. Nobody living can make us turn back. This world was made for you and me.
Thank you so much, Pam. Not only is Pam a magnificent entertainer, but she writes all of these songs herself, and you know, how often can you have a service where somebody has actually tailored the music so specifically for the service? So thank you. Deb and I are always trying to figure out what's going to work with this, and you just ask Pam and she'll write something. So thank you so much. And that's what you did, yeah. Say, Pam, I got nothing. You got to help us out here. So not coincidentally, the title of my sermon is also Cool It. And I begin by mentioning a 2002 Nature article in which environmentalist Russ George says, listen, it's so easy to save the planet. Boy, we're getting a lot of phone calls today. And a lot of nice ringtones too, you know, So Russ says, listen, it's so easy to save the planet. We just have to restore the ocean to its historic level of health and productivity. The ocean will easily manage the lion's share of CO2. And it's true, not only is the ocean by far the largest carbon sequester on the planet, it's also the largest producer of oxygen in the process. But like the rest of our planet, the soil, the air, the trees and forests, the glaciers and ice sheets, and all the other life-sustaining systems on our small pale blue dot, the ocean is in deep trouble. I don't consider it extreme to say that we are at the beginning of a global environmental apocalypse. I consider it the beginning only because we have not yet experienced the hell that is coming if we don't take drastic action now. And many of those alive today will know that hell if we don't take dramatic action now, because we're already feeling it. As I see it, there are 4 major obstructions in our way of effectively addressing climate change: denial, scale, know-how, and hopelessness. The first of these, denial, is largely driven, sadly, by politics. It's unfortunate that in the U.S., one of the 2 largest carbon polluters on the planet, along with China, has an entire political party that has historically called this inconvenient truth that's right in front of our eyes a hoax, cast doubt on its causes, and supported presidents who seem to delight in thwarting any progress from being made to combat it. And I use that word combat because climate is actually now considered one of our biggest enemies, according to the U.S. Department of Defense, that listed as a top threat. As difficult as it is to imagine our nation's commander-in-chief failing to act on the concerns of our top military advisors, this has too often been the case in our country. And even those who do want to do something about it, like the current president, must endure months, even years of political gridlock just to make minor advances that are going to end up looking like too little too late. Regarding scale, the Earth is enormous, at least relative to us. In the grand scheme of things, it's a pale blue dot. But for us, it's our home, and it's humongous. So repairing the problems of human waste appear to be overwhelming to us. Even if we're able to achieve net zero carbon emissions today, how could we possibly stop the chain of events that we have already set in place? In his book, Hacking the Earth, or Hacking Planet Earth, I should say, environmental journalist and author Thomas Costigan says, the chance of reducing global temperatures by cutting back on carbon emissions is just 5%, according to analysis published in Nature Climate Change. And just last week, it was a big deal for President Biden to commit to a 52% reduction by 2030. All right, we've been projecting those out to 2050. So 2030 is a big step in the right direction, but again, it's huge, but it's not enough. The matter of scale combined with our lack of know-how leads us to the 4th major obstacle in our way, and that is our own sense of hopelessness. If the problem seems too big to tackle and we don't know where or even how to begin, then we feel powerless to do anything about it. What's the point of doing anything we think? Game over. Yet I will argue to the contrary. There is one approach to solving climate change and global warming that can help us overcome all of these obstructions, and that is technology. Technological advances often occur outside of government intrusion and influence, especially from Republicans who have a zealous hatred of regulations. So we don't have to worry as much about government apathy or gridlock when it comes to tech. And once adopted, technology can be scaled up and become cheaper, more efficient, and almost ubiquitously adopted within just a few short years. Think automobiles, computers, and smartphones. It's also through the invention of technologies that climate scientists and geoengineers who do have the know-how are able to actually make practical differences, to turn that know-how into something real. Finally, as I will argue today, many of today's technical realities, as well as those that are on the cusp of being on the way, are reasons for genuine hope that we not only stop climate change, but can also turn back the clock on global warming and repair much of the harm that we have inadvertently caused to our suffering planet. Some will feel naturally resistant to this line of reasoning because our use of technology is what has gotten us into such hot water, literally. How can the source of the problem be its solution, some ask? Yet, as obscure as my opinion might be, I believe the activities of all creatures alter their environments. Kind of how evolution works. Often in detrimental ways. Our species is nature's toolmaker, and the use of tools has long altered our environment to meet our needs. But this is not the Earth's first such precipice, nor have other periods of mass extinction been the fault of technology. About 2.5 billion years ago, only 1 billion years after life on Earth had begun, a population explosion occurred. A population explosion of oxygen-excreting single cells. The only kind of life on the planet at the time, and that fundamentally changed the chemistry of our atmosphere. Today, most life forms need oxygen to survive, and we forget how dangerous a compound it is. Not only is it a corrosive so strong that it can destroy iron and other metals, in large amounts it is highly explosive. And during the first known mass extinction on Earth, the Earth was also on the brink of becoming just another cosmic fireball. And that apocalypse changed almost at the last minute as some mutated cells evolved to actually consume the oxygen, to use the oxygen for energy and to excrete a life-saving carbon dioxide instead. In those days, it was carbon dioxide that saved us, which eventually became food for Earth's vegetation. So today we're facing the mirror image of the first die-off, oxygen-breathing organisms putting too much carbon into the air. Mostly because our overpopulated species, like the overpopulated single-cell organisms, have depended upon the burning of fossil fuels, stored carbon, that is, to energize our lives, to energize our technologies. But unlike many, I do not consider this unnatural. I consider it perfectly natural. Humans, tool-making, and technology are a part of nature because we are a part of nature. Again, the first mass extinction and near apocalypse was caused by mindless cells that dramatically altered the environment with nothing more than their presence and no technologies whatsoever. Nature is not always benign, right? We've had to adapt to its harshness. I would further argue that if we are going to stop the warming of our planet and avoid the worst related disasters, part of the solution, at least, must include what our tool-making species does best, make tools. It must include technologies designed to save our planet. Prior to the writing of his latest book, Thomas Costigan has penned several others, mostly about the small changes that each of us can make to help reduce our carbon footprints, including things like solar panels on our roofs. Beginning with the Green Book, the everyday guide to saving the planet one simple step at a time, written in 2007. But in 2016, Costigan reached a turning point, realizing this movement won't work at the grassroots level. He says, "It is time to turn our collective attention toward supporting industry and encouraging the business community, scientists and technologists, innovators, to step up and do what they do best, invent, pioneer, disrupt the same old ways of doing things. Yes, industry, the sector of society responsible for much of human-caused global warming to begin with, has to turn things around and lead the charge to help mend our climate. One of those innovators, Bill Gates, concurs in his new book, How to Avoid Climate Disaster, the solutions we have and the breakthroughs we need. When it comes to climate change, he says, I know innovation isn't the only thing we need, but we cannot keep the earth livable without it. Techno fixes are not sufficient, but they are necessary. The argument that technology got us into this mess, therefore it cannot get us out of it, is also logically unsound. And you know how much illogic frustrates me. A key that locks a door can also unlock it. Just as the door it unlocks that has been opened can also be closed. Nor is all technology the same, to lump everything into all tech into the, sort of this dangerous entity. A nuclear bomb, for example, can destroy a city. A butter knife cannot. To assume that all technology is fundamentally destructive and thus part of the problem is really nonsense. We have reached a point, furthermore, where we must address many of the causes and repercussions of global warming on a global scale. And that can be done with innovative technologies. I say this not as a technophile, not as a techno-utopian, but as a logical thinker. What I'm talking about is using technology to alter our climate. Using technology to make our planet a bit cooler again, to revitalize the dying soil so that it can sequester again, carbon again, and begin to sustain plants better than it is able right now. To heal and cool the ocean and restore its dead zones. To refreeze and rebuild our glaciers and our ice sheets. To refreeze them and rebuild them. To get our energy from completely renewable resources starting yesterday, not in 2030. And to reduce our dependencies upon billions of methane and carbon-producing livestock animals for food. And I know this is possible because something like it has already been done. Right? We have already successfully used technology to re-engineer the entire planet in about 100 years. Changing its chemical composition in short order, changing its temperature, changing its weather patterns. We've done that. We've succeeded in doing that with technology. We just didn't do it intentionally. Now imagine what we can do after another century if we use our technological wits to intentionally geoengineer our planet. Already in just a few short years, renewable energy has become the cheapest in history thanks to solar and wind power, both of which are technologies. Almost every month it seems we hear about another major car company's decision to go entirely electric, thanks to improved battery storage, and that's technology. And the greatest advantage of technology is that its use and improvements grow exponentially, so that it achieves scale in short order, just as computers, smartphones, and the internet have done for us over the past 30 years. In 2017, Dutch inventor and entrepreneur Boyan Slat. How many of you have heard of Boyan Slat? Right. Boyan Slat said, technology is the most potent agent of change. It's an amplifier of our human capabilities. Unlike the plastic pollution that he's taking on, Slats is hardly a household name, so I don't blame you for having not heard of him. If you remember him at all, or can be reminded of him at all, It's because he made big headlines in 2018 after launching Ocean System 1 in the San Francisco Bay, a 2,000-foot-long contraption he'd invented to help remove plastic from the ocean. Some of you remember that vaguely, that story? Yeah. So Slat came up with this idea in 2012 when he was only 18 years old. 2 years earlier, while diving, the concerned teenager noticed more plastic in the sea than fish, and he became passionate about cleaning it up. He was 19 when he founded the Ocean Cleanup, a nonprofit with a mission to develop technologies to rid the ocean of its plastics. Does that seem overwhelming to you? Like a big problem? Wishful thinking? System 1 was an experimental learning experience that ended up breaking in half. But a year later, an advanced system, the Ocean Cleanup, created did successfully bring its first load of plastic back to shore, about 60 large bags worth, including small millimeter-sized pieces. By the way, this is done without harming the fish, designed so the fish can swim through this easily. Then, just last month, how many of you saw this on October 20th, this huge news about the Ocean Cleanup? Do you remember that story all over the news? No. No. You heard it. Good. Yeah. Good. You heard about it too? Good. Three people. But you didn't hear about this on CNN. You heard about it on YouTube. Yeah, that's right. So if you are into environmental stuff, YouTube will send you environmental videos. That's probably how you saw it. Maybe? Yeah. Yeah. Because unfortunately, well, I'll get into that later. The point is what happened on October 20th. So they removed nearly 10 tons. 10 tons of plastic waste from the Great Pacific Garbage Patch using Ocean System 2. And the patch of floating garbage is almost twice the size of Texas, and is kept in place by the ocean currents. The patch of floating garbage is an enormous undertaking. But in October, Slat told reporters after their haul, if we just collect this amount of garbage 3,000 more times, then the garbage patch will be gone and just exist in the history books. And now that proof of concept has been achieved, it's time to scale up. Slat and Ocean Cleanup intend to do so by deploying fleets of these plastic collecting technologies that will include 10 new systems every 5 years. So I hope that you fully absorbed what I just said. We're going to clean up our oceans. If this monumental achievement isn't enough, the Ocean Cleanup has also figured out how to prevent plastics from getting back in the ocean. 2 years ago in 2019, Slat unveiled the Ocean Cleanup's newest technology, the Inceptor, to be used, as he said, for closing the tap. The Inceptor is a plastic-gathering, fully autonomous, solar-powered marine vehicle that, as its name suggests, intercepts plastic garbage in rivers that would otherwise feed it into the ocean, because that's where it's coming from. Now, talk about overwhelming. Any idea how many rivers there are in the world? Anybody? Any geologists? About 100,000. 100,000 rivers. But the Ocean Cleanup has identified which of them are the main arteries. By looking at the Earth from space, they've been able to see where this plastic is coming from and narrowed it down to the main arteries, which is about 1% of the rivers. That leaves us with only 1,000 rivers to deal with, responsible for about 80% of the plastic pollution. The Intercept has already been deployed. It's been deployed since then in some of the worst rivers in the world, which means the oceans are not only going to be clean, they're going to stay clean. So, thanks to this single organization and its innovative use of technology, we are going to rid our oceans of plastic pollution and protect them against it in the future. And if you're wondering, commercial alert here, if you're wondering what happens to this plastic after it's been removed, how many of you are wondering that? Yeah, what are they going to do with all that plastic? Well, Ocean Cleanup recycles it. They pelletize it into these small, beautiful blue pearls that can then be reused to make new plastic products and can continuously be recycled as necessary. In fact, if you want to contribute to the ocean cleanup, you can contribute $200 and receive a high-quality pair of designer sunglasses made out of plastic that is certified from the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. And 100% of that donation goes to the work they're doing to clean up the ocean. I don't usually give commercials during my sermons, but I wanted to promote this one. Unfortunately, in addition to those on the right who are in denial, there are some environmental activists who are extremely resistant to any kind of technological responses to global warming and climate change. In my opinion, such extremism is itself dangerous because we don't have time to waste. Nature needs our help, and technology is going to be a big part of that solution. Take, for example, the ocean's dead zones. Vast regions that have become oxygen deprived because of pollutant runoff, also fed into the ocean by rivers like the Mississippi. The closest dead zone to the U.S. is the Gulf of Mexico. In the Gulf of Mexico, it's nearly 9,000 square miles, and it's continuing to expand. And it's not the only one. Even if the pollution stopped today, it would take thousands of years for nature to heal it on its own. And it would do so by increasing ocean life, which produces the waste energy necessary for microorganisms like kelp and algae and phytoplankton to eventually reoxygenize, ocean habitats. Alas, overfishing, pollution, warmer waters, dead zones have dramatically reduced life in the sea, dramatically, including microbial life, as evidenced by the bleaching of the coral reefs, right? The corals are the apparatus for that microbial life. That's the color, that's the liveliness that we see in it. So there's not as much in the ocean for nature to work with anymore. Marine biologist John Martin tried to find a solution to this major problem as far back as the 1980s. Upon finding these dead zones are deprived of iron, he experimented by adding iron dust to a small area. The result was an increase in phytoplankton, a microbic food source that absorbs carbon on the surface of the oceans, and then it sinks to the bottom when it dies to the bottom of the sea floor, where the carbon is safely stored, as it has been for millions of years. Hundreds of millions of years. Despite his success, he was rebuffed, asked to stop, and accused of littering the ocean with iron pollution by others in his scientific community. Martin nevertheless persisted with his experiments the next time near the Galapagos Islands, where, again, phytoplankton levels soared. After Martin's untimely death in 1993, others were inspired by his findings. In 2012, environmental entrepreneur Russ Martin, I think I'm getting that name wrong. I'm giving him the name Russ Martin. They're not both named Martin. I'm forgetting this guy's first name. I'm sorry. His last name's actually Russ, so we'll just call him Russ. Maybe we'll call him Rust, since he uses iron. So Russ poured hundreds of tons of iron dust into the Pacific Ocean. Just a couple of hundred miles off of British Columbia. Costigan says they accused, George Russ, thank you, because I call him George right here. I can be so dumb sometimes. Okay, so it's Russ George. Russ George. Oh my God. It's Russ George. Because they wouldn't call him George if I'm logically thinking they would call him by his last name, so what a jerk. I mean, both of these guys, John Martin, Martin John, two first names. No wonder I'm thrown off. No wonder I'm confused. Anyway, let's listen to what Costigan says. He says, they accused George of illegal dumping, violating United Nations covenants on geoengineering and other international protocols. But guess what? What he did worked. The oceans came to life with schools of fish and marine life. Yet the marine science community was again furious. The Canadian authorities raided his office, held George at gunpoint, and destroyed all of his data. Data, George says, indicated exactly how much carbon was removed from the air by iron dusting the ocean. Of course, iron dusting needs further research and should be closely monitored so it doesn't have unwanted or unseen consequences like red tides by producing the wrong kinds of algae, right? So we should be watching this stuff and doing more experiments. But it really could also be a magic bullet. You know, if a magic bullet exists, it could be a magic bullet for healing the ocean that is abundant, it's cheap, it can be ordered off Amazon or picked up at your local hardware store. Costigan reminds us iron fertilization would be 10 to 100 times cheaper than forestation. So we can't let our fear of technology prevent us from solving problems that otherwise will be unsolved. Right? We have to take some risk to fix this thing because there are greater risks in store if we don't. Other hopeful technologies include physicist John Pierre Wolf's latest device that could fairly be described as a remote control for rain. By pointing his laser at the sky, it can manufacture lightning in a cloud, break through air molecules, and actually make rain. Or conversely, it can blast through water molecules and dissipate precipitation. Imagine what this could do to parched areas of our planet. Imagine what it could do for our neighbors in California devastated by global warming and how it might restore and protect their forest. Thanks to an X Prize competition, we also now have affordable technology that can remove thousands of liters of water from the air, really from thin air, in a day, running completely on renewable energy. This technology is already being used again in some of the most parched places in the world. And just this week there was an article, probably you saw it in our own local paper, of a company here in Spokane Valley, or Liberty Lake, I think, that has been selling these devices to California. Any of you see that? Yeah, you saw that too. Not on YouTube, though, in the paper, right? That was in the Spokesman, right? So I'm glad to see it's taken off so quickly, because it was only a couple of years ago that this prize was announced. And speaking of the X Prize, earlier this year, Elon Musk announced the greatest incentive prize in history, the largest incentive prize in history, right? $100 million to the person or team that comes up with a scalable carbon sequestration technology. To win the 4-year competition, X Prize says Teams must demonstrate a working solution at a scale of at least 1,000 tons removed per year, model their cost at a scale of 1 million tons per year, and show a pathway to achieving a scale of gigatons per year in the future. This amount is based on the International Panel on Climate Change's estimate that nearly 10 gigatons of net CO2 need to be removed each year just to keep global temperatures from getting worse. Based on XPRIZE's incredible history and success, we can expect to see this technology by 2025, if not before. The Gates Foundation is working on technology that will pump cool water up from the bottom of the ocean in front of hurricanes to keep them from becoming too powerful. And recognizing that trees are the largest sequestration species on land, Salesforce, the largest employer on land, is working with World Forum to plant 1 trillion trees, 1 trillion more trees by 2030. I think there's 4 trillion now, so we'll have 5 trillion trees on the planet. That's a pretty huge increase. They've already planted 10 million trees since they started last year. Sometimes drones are used to blast seeds into ground that is remote and too hard to otherwise get to. And this is being done to restore mangroves in Madagascar, reforest areas burned by fires, repair degraded farmlands, and watershed restoration in Latin America as well as other places. It's already being done. And to top it off, environmental engineer Klaus Lackner has invented an artificial tree that captures a ton of carbon dioxide every day. Imagine a forest of millions of these affordable, simply constructed trees. It's estimated such a forest would actually be able to consume 36 gigatons a year. 36, that's all of it. That's all of our carbon waste in a year. That'd be about 1 million of these artificial trees. That's a lot less than 1 trillion trees, a lot fewer than 1 trillion trees, and it won't take long for them to start having an impact. That technology exists. Now it's about scaling it. Reflective particles in the atmosphere, reflectors on the desert sands, reflective roofs, and reflective topsoil, or reflective asphalt, I should say, are all technologies that also now exist and are helping to reflect carbon-captured heat back into outer space. So are massive solar farms in the most energy-deprived places on the planet, as well as bladeless windmills. Imagine that, bladeless windmills that stand only about 11 feet tall, require less land, are more efficient than traditional windmills, and will not interfere with the movement of migratory birds. Those technologies exist. There are cloud brightening yachts, right, to get the clouds to reflect back towards outer space. They reflect that hot sunlight that's been trapped in the atmosphere, keeping it from burning up our endangered coral reefs. And there's also a program that is actually relocating the coral reefs to cooler climes so that they will continue to at least thrive in the future. There are vertical farms that use 40 to 95% less water than traditional farming that will help feed our growing urban populations, and new technologies for preserving and restoring the soil in traditional farms. There are plans to build embankments and manufactured islands to prevent warm water from further interacting with our melting glaciers. Earlier this year, the first companies were approved to sell lab-grown meat to consumers, an industry that will dramatically reduce the carbon footprint of tens of billions of livestock animals and be far less cruel and healthier for us all. You think 7.5 billion people is a lot? We have about 60 billion livestock animals on the planet right now. AI-controlled autonomous green energy cars are also likely to become commonplace by 2030, if not having entirely supplanted driving as we know it. And the list of technologies, companies, and innovators coming up with solutions to global warming is a lot longer than what I've mentioned here in our time together today, and they continue to mount. We don't usually hear about them because, again, the national media gets too focused on stories that are sensational but don't really make a difference in our lives, right? Like obsessing over an accidental shooting on a Hollywood movie set. That doesn't really do much for me, right? Nor a pop star's private struggle with her father. That doesn't impact my life. They don't give us daily reports on how much hotter it is around the world, or how many gallons of glaciers have melted in a day, or how much the sea level has risen. Those things that really matter to us. Fortunately, there are lots of people who do have the wit and the desire and the know-how, who are paying attention and are doing something about it. And this should give us hope. Perhaps Thomas Costigan gives the most timely anecdote in the final sentences of Hacking Planet Earth. Medical vaccines have saved humans from dying off in droves. Geoengineering and environmental technologies are the vaccines I believe we need to cure the planet's ills. It's time to take our shots. Thank you.
Well, we're going to close with a song that always, at least for me, kind of reconnects me to my roots and to the earth. And I think most of you know this song. It's Take Me Home, Country Roads. So please stand as you're willing and able and sing it out. Almost heaven, West Virginia.
Painted on the sky, misty taste of moonshine.
We close our service with these thoughts from Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. We must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope. And everything that is done in the world is done by hope. And then finally, this thought by actor Bradley Whitford, who was just here this weekend. You may know him from The West Wing. Infuse your life with action. Don't wait for it to happen. Make it happen. Make your own future. Make your own hope. Make your own love. And whatever your beliefs, honor your Creator, not by passively waiting for grace to come down from upon high, but by doing what you can to make grace happen yourself, right now, right down here on earth. Amen. Blessed be. Salam alaikum and shalom.
Shalom Haverim, Shalom Haverim, Shalom, Shalom, Shalom Haverim, Shalom Haverim, Shalom,
That song you played.